What is up, Shark Nation? We are back for another episode of the SharkPod. I've got my brother-in-law and your co-host out there in Glenagary. I used to live there for 20 years, so I forgot it. But Mark Baker, how are you doing today?
Good, Luke. Good to be here. I see you've moved on upwards to Greystones.
Me, yeah, I'm in Greystones, living the dream here, Greystone Studios. So today we are going through, this is kind of a follow-up one on the bonus episode that we did at the beginning of October. Just for any of those people who haven't been following Koch-tober here on the SharkPod, me and Mark, usually we do something in October, some sort of challenge, some sort of just kind of like self-improvement exercise. A lot of the time we're talking about, the Joe Rogan style, not drinking on October, sober October type setup. This year, because of lots of different reasons, like me and Mark aren't really drinking that much anyway, and it seemed like the odd glass of wine with a steak during the month wouldn't really be such a challenge. So we skipped that, and we wanted to do something to kind of better ourselves anyway. We had listened to a podcast on the Tim Ferris podcast with Richard Koch. And Richard Koch is the author of many books, but as I say, he's probably the most famous for the 80-20 principle. So me and Mark thought about that, and we thought, you know what, let's make a challenge where we read 4 books of his in October, as well as trying to eat clean. And I've actually got it here, Mark. We were saying that we're going to try to drop 2% body fat in the month, as well as, maintain muscle mass, stuff like that. We actually got a machine each that did that. Hey, Mark, how did you... Let's start there before we go into the 4 books that we chose to break down for the audience here. Why don't we go into how did the physical part go? We said we were going to eat the 4-hour body diet style, paleo for the month. How'd it go?
Well, on the strictness of it, I didn't find it that hard because I was kind of doing that anyway. So the month before, I had said, right, I'll cut out bread and pasta and stuff, and just on the weekends I'd have what I want. And I did that before, and it's actually not a bad way of doing things. And it's based on the 4-hour body, which is essentially kind of like paleo with a cheat day, and I extended that to a cheat weekend. But this time we said so I'd actually lost about half a stone nearly in a month. And I don't carry much weight anyway, so I was coming off the back of that. So that's why my improvements weren't great in October, but like on the scales. But actually doing it, I was quite strict. I rarely went off. Like the odd time, I think I might have had something that wasn't paleo. But just on a Saturday, I'd go nuts on a Saturday and eat what I wanted. So I didn't find it that hard.
It's almost like a maintenance thing for you to kind of lock in the.
There's a big difference between like Saturday. I've always done Saturdays and Sundays, whatever I want. Like, and I like donuts. I like pastries. I'm not big into like pizzas or anything like that, but like I like sweet things.
Yeah.
So, on the weekends, I'm strict during the week. I think it's a good way of doing things for some people who struggle with their weight or anything like that. I think it's worked. Not that I've ever had any weight problems, but it's quite achievable long term, I think, to do that.
Yeah,
strict during the week, but go nuts on the weekend. But I found it really hard to limit it to one day, because with the kids, and even we'd be out, and it's like there's a Teddy's ice cream at the end of a walk, and I can't have that on a Sunday. It's just like, what's the point in that? Like, I don't think I could do it.
Yeah, and you don't really need to. You're I'd say, for want of a better word, naturally lean. You're
probably like an ectomorph type body. But I do, but like, and then there's the gym side of it. They were shut down, obviously, so I was going well there, and I didn't do much. I didn't try to. I was doing it up in the field before in the summer, with the ropes and stuff and hanging off the crossbar and stuff, but not in the rain. It's a different story altogether. Yeah.
Completely different story. I was a little bit the same. So like to be honest, this is the first time I tried to kind of like clean up a diet and stuff like that, and I didn't really take as much. So like I was doing well for the first few weeks as well, and then the lockdown came in. No gym, darker days. Me and my wife are expecting a child any day now, so it's kind of like I don't want to blame anyone here, but it's kind of like of like sympathy eating. I kind of want to get involved when we're nesting.
Yeah, it's probably not the best time for you to be doing a challenge like that, really. When there's no really good reason to do it, as opposed to just why not?
Yeah, exactly. But like, still, like, I'm down 1.6 kilos in the month, which is a little bit less than I thought it would be. I was thinking probably about 5 kilos usually when I turn on that type of approach. But during the week, I wasn't being as clean as I could be. So anyway, I'll keep on keeping on with that until I get down to my fighting weight. But the other part of the challenge for Koch-tober was to read the 4 books. So the four books that we have is one, the 80-20 rule, which is the kind of the main one. This is a monster of a book for people to go ahead and read. It's about, I think it's 400 pages or something like that. So it's a nice long book. And to be honest, the first time I read that was back when I was in university doing the master's in strategic management. Koch is a big one for strategic management students. He was someone who was a big figure in the management consulting game, kind of in the 80s. And he's written a lot of books around what he's learned, building winning strategies for his own businesses, as well as businesses at the highest level. So really kind of a monster of the kind of strategy, business strategy sphere, especially outside of academia. He's kind of like the guy that's not a professor who writes types of books. So there's the 80-20 rule, which we read. There's the STAR principle, my favorite book that he's wrote or that he's written. It is way shorter. I mean, you could probably read it in 3 or 4 hours. But it's really, really impactful. And I think we're going to have a chat about some of the stuff that we talked with the Irish Fire podcast host, Michael Houghton, about kind of financial independence and stuff like that. I think the STAR principle really ties in there. So that'll be good. We'll have a look at that. Super Connect, which is about networking, that I just told Mark before the podcast that I didn't really like. It was more just, okay, make sure that you have good networks. Get out there and network, talk to people. We've talked about that on the podcast lots of times. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, I don't know if there is anything you can do to put, to put that on steroids. Networking.
I don't know.
It's about there's different strengths in a network. Maybe we can go on to that. There's first connections, second connections. Meaningful relationships, childhood relationships. You can. I just don't think you can beat a relationship that's been built up in your younger years or through a whatever. Maybe it's a training contract in a solicitor firm or an accounting firm or school. If you're trying to connect with someone on the same level as you connected with someone when you're in school in your 40s, I just don't know if that's the same strength. So it's almost start as young as you can.
Absolutely, and I think that's actually covered the book. So we'll finish up on that on the end, because there is a few differences, and you kind of covered a good synopsis of the book in a few sentences.
It's almost like I've read it.
Yeah, exactly. So there's the last book that we're going to have a chat about is how to. Was it? You've got the book in front of you there. What's the actual title?
So it's Unreasonable Success and How to Achieve It.
Nice. So that's the one that's out currently. Came out, I think, about 2 months ago. So I've read that one as well. That one just does exactly what it says on the tin. It takes examples of, I think, 14 different unreasonably successful people, and then kind of maps out what they have in common, and how to actually pull the trigger and do that yourself as well. So we'll kick off here. I think that if you look at those books in a chronological order, it gets, for me, it was most kind of high level and high impact at the beginning, and then what it seems that he's tried to do over the last 20 or 30 years is kind of bring the 80-20 principle, the STAR principle, kind of to the masses with these books that, like, that's a very easy read, the How to Achieve the Unreasonable Success, and I think that it's definitely something that's accessible to not just business people, but some people that are trying to be successful in anything, which is great. Okay, so let's kick this off, right? So the first one, and I think the most important one, is the 80-20 principle. Anybody out there who's read anything by Tim Ferris, basically, if you read the 80-20 principle, you can see where a lot of the stuff is coming from. This is really the basis of what the 4-hour work week and everything that came out of that afterwards. Richard Koch, the 80-20 principle, just for the people who haven't come across this, the 80-20 principle is the concept that there is a skew in the rate of returns. So basically in anything in the universe. So there was a guy, he was an economist called Pareto, and this comes from Pareto's law, where he said, okay, 80% of my peas are coming out of 20% of my pods in my garden. What's that about? And then when you look into companies, 80% of sales come from 20% of salespeople. 80% of losses come from 20% of products. And as he goes into the book, you see that it's not just 80-20. A lot of the time it's 95-5 or 99-1. And it kind of talks to the concept that we're really seeing now, that in COVID world, where it's not an equal distribution based on effort or merit. It's a winner take all. It's a zero sum game in a lot of businesses. Amazon, like sometimes I laugh, Mark, when on RTE, when they're saying that all of these sole traders need to open an e-commerce business and they'll be fine because the government is shutting them down. They won't be fine. Amazon is going to take 99% of anyone's attention online.
Yeah, it's actually pathetic to even to say that, like, oh, they just need to help get online. And it's great, and people are like, I'll help a company, a small shop in, Kerry get online. Like, that is just like, that's step 1 out of 100. And then there's timing as well. You have to be online so long in order to actually get traction. It's such a cop out to say just go online. Yeah. And also, like, another thing is, like, people, and it's a very, very good thing to be doing, like saying, all right, if you have a following, saying you'll share, everybody, say it's Twitter, right? Tweet at me any businesses that need sharing, to shop local and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And
then there's probably about 200 people commenting on all these different shops that need help. Like,
yeah,
that's not gonna help anyone. Do you know what I mean? Really, like, it's not gonna make a difference. It's a nice gesture, but it's so hard to get people to purchase online for your shop.
Yeah.
And thinking that just sharing it and saying it to people is gonna make a difference. It's not, because Amazon own so much of the market. Like,
yeah, exactly. So it's not equal distribution, and that's probably a good example. So, like, this,
how can those? I would say, how, if you're a small business, you should think, how do I get on Amazon? You know what I mean? How do I, if you can't beat them, join them and try it your own as well. But, like, see if you can get in somewhere and use their platform. Like, it's bad, like, but I suppose he has its own up.
But, like, the online thing is interesting because in the kind of investing world, like VCs, all the kind of big investors and stuff like that, they run a mile from e-commerce businesses. E-commerce is notorious in tech for losing money, and obviously there's exceptions to that rule for sure. But if you have, like, a software as a service business, it's way more likely that you'll get some cash to actually fund that idea, rather than if it's e-commerce. E-commerce requires a huge infrastructure to do at scale. You need a whole returns department. You need logistics. You need fulfillment. If you're somebody who's doing handicrafts in County Kilkenny, like, I don't know where you're going to get the cash to set that up. Even at a small scale. And if you do it at a small scale, it's unlikely that you're going to be found, unless you want to, like we're saying this, right? You can upskill at Google AdWords and or SEO. Like, a lot of people that have been on the podcast have really high level skills at those areas, and they could basically sell anything online, I would say, with the skills that they have. But a lot of people who haven't been developing those, it's not likely that they're going to be ultimately successful.
Surely not, when you're saying it's all right, here we're in for another 2-month lockdown, right? Just get online there. That's and people do go on like that, and it's really frustrating when I hear that. I feel so sorry for anyone who believes that.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's something that it's one of the takeaways that I had from the 80-20 book. It sounds like one of those books that if you just read the sleeve of the book, that you'd get everything that you're going to get out, or get 80% of the value of just reading the outside. There are books like that. There's a book I bought the other week called Atomic Habits. It's James Carr. Can't see it now, but it's on my shelf here. And basically, I didn't get much out of it. It was very much, if you could have read the first few pages and the last few pages, you'd be grand, type of thing. But the 80-20 principle, I would recommend this to absolutely anybody. It goes into such detail. It's a real handbook of some of stuff that you can use in your business and like personally. It talks about like we think that the business world is highly competitive and kind of reached some sort of equilibrium or end game. Nothing could be further from the truth. You know, every company or every company that's like established has all of these inefficiencies. There's all these niche businesses that you could open just to attack one little area of that. I'll give you an example. I was talking to a friend of mine who's started a business recently, and he works for a really big company, right? He's left that company now, and he's built a really, really small piece of software, really, really small, niche. And there's really big multinational companies building this at the same time, right? They're building an entire platform to go after a certain market. He's just going to go after a little tiny bit of the market. He built this himself, and he's already got big logos that want to buy this from him already, right?
Wow.
Basically, it's going to compete with the company that he's leaving has about 200,000 employees, and this is going to compete just at a little tiny bit of that big huge company, but it's going to be so much more competitive than what they're offering, and it's going to be 20% of the price, all this type of stuff. And in the 80-20 principle as well, Koch talks about like simplicity is beautiful, complexity is ugly. If you can do something, I knew nothing about the type of business that he was in. He explained his product in a few sentences, and I was like, yeah, I'll give you anything that you want to invest in that. I'm all in. Do you know what I mean? And that's what we should be looking for. So there's all these little nuggets in there about that. But what did you think about the 80-20 principle, Mark? Do you think you got a lot out of it? Was that the first time that you actually read the book?
It's the first time that I read the book. I knew the law. What's the law again? Pareto's law, is it?
Pareto's law, yeah.
Yeah. Which is funny because he's taken from that, and then Tim Ferris is taken from the 80-20 and honed it. It's keeping honing it,
evolving, yeah,
even more. But yeah, I felt like it was, and I've discovered the principle obviously a while ago. But for anyone reading for the first time, it will be like they're discovering a secret that that they would have loved. They should know already. That they're really wasting a lot of time on menial kind of tasks, and like in Father Ted, where they're trying to fix the car and they're doing all the little dints in it, and then it just turns into this big absolute mess. Whereas they just actually focus on 20% of the most important thing. That's going to have the biggest impact. But it's not just, we're talking about business all the time, and consciousness is business and lifestyle, but it's happiness, investing, relationships, in work. Talks about winning, time management, negotiation. It's literally in everything, and it's essentially fighting against, and Koch calls it the Protestant work ethic of hard work versus reward. And I don't know why is it something to do with Protestantism or religion, but it's ingrained in us, and I fight against it all the time. I know I try to focus on the biggest task, but at the same time, when everybody's in bed here and I'm just by myself, I'll go on the computer and I'll tap away at all those other little things to tidy everything up. I don't know if that's not OCD, but it makes me feel better if I've just tweaked everything a little bit as well. Whereas that is completely the opposite of what you should be doing according to the 80-20 principle.
It's that what you're talking about there is so important, and it's something that I took from this book as well. That it's hard to take. It's advice that's hard to take because you know that you're not living like this.
Yeah.
And even if it's basically holding up a mirror to say this is all of these mistakes that people make, you're making, right? So when we know that we spend 80% of our time doing stuff that we don't like doing, or we spend only 20% of our time pursuing stuff that is exciting to us, that makes us happy, all that type of stuff. or just like you said, it's kind of pervasive in everything in your life, right? But the Protestant work ethic, I think this is not something that Koch says, but I think it's more of a control thing, you know? So say if I'm a salesperson, I can control how many emails I send to unqualified people, right? I can, if I have a list of emails, I can send them out, make it generic, whatever. I'll send out 1,000 emails. I can control that action. Do you know what I mean? So working really hard afterwards, like say, you kind of pat yourself on the back, even though you know that at least 80% of those emails are going to come to nothing. Do you know what I mean? And you could have got the same outcome or way more than 20% of your.
But it's like, what about that one company or you would have contacted if you had sent out those 100 emails as opposed to 20? What if one of those 80 was the one that actually was one of the gems that you were looking for? And that's the problem.
Yeah.
So it's more you step back from that. If you think like that, well, then you should only be going after the ones that you think, it's all about planning at the start and then applying it. Don't bother. He would say, don't bother going after companies that you're not at least a little bit sure that you're going to get reward from them.
Yeah. Like he goes into how to treat so it's not just an overview of the rule. Like at the beginning of the book, he really talks about how to use this for businesses. So he suggests that you dig into all of your customers and say, okay, which ones do we actually make money from? Which ones do we make the most money from? Why don't we give them out? He calls it outrageous service that seems ridiculous to them compared to anyone else. And he uses the example of treating a profitable account like it's a major account, even if it's a small business or whatever, just to make sure that they don't go anywhere, right? How many business? Sorry, hold on. How many businesses that treat everybody the same, or when a support ticket is open, it just goes into a queue normally. Should they not be looking at the most profitable ones and serving them first? I know that sounds bad, but it's the way it should be.
I've been on the other side of that when a client, not one of my clients, I've been a client of someone else. I won't say what it was or who it was, but because they had me, they almost thought that's fine, and they're too busy focusing on getting other people. And when I was unhappy with certain things, I didn't get the service that I wanted, so therefore I didn't renew that contract with them, and I should have been in their 20%. My company should have been in that 20%. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's things that people aren't focusing on.
Yeah.
I
actually, sorry, look, you can actually retrospectively do that if you have a business. You can go back through without even knowing. This is the first time you've heard 80-20 principle. Go back over your clients and do that 80-20 analysis. It's spot on. It's unbelievable. And I did it then going forward. So just with selling t-shirts online, last week I did like 10 new designs, put them up and put a bit of money in an ad behind them, all equally. All designs were based on the same subject, all slightly different designs, obviously, but all similar enough quality. 20% of them made 80% of the profit.
That's so weird.
Weird.
It's such an interesting thing. And when you've proved it like that, and I've the same in work. Like if I look at say when I was in direct sales for 3 years for HubSpot, like if I took all of the deals that I've ever done, I would say 90% of the revenue I made was definitely on 10% of the deals.
Yeah. It's actually 80-20 or more extreme is what they say. It could actually be 99-1 at times.
Which it is for the movie industry. So 99% of all of the money goes to 1.3%. I know that doesn't make sense mathematically, but around that, almost 9% of the money goes to 1% of the movies that are made. Which, like, it's really mind blowing. But like then, okay, so. And there's a few things I want to talk about in the second half of the book where he actually talks about how to. So the first part of the book is about how to dig into your business and find the where the leaks are where you're spending money that you shouldn't be spending, or where you should be investing your time and effort, all that type of stuff. And the second part of the book, he really digs into how to use this for your own personal life, how to address this. He actually goes a little bit harsh on the people that you spend time with, and then tells you to burn the list after you make it. So I think Koch goes a little bit too far there, but so the what's I going to say there? So can't remember
the people side of it. The second half.
Yeah, the second half he goes into like how you can use this in your own life to figure out where you should be spending your time. But there's this part where you get to where you say, okay, then what? Right? This is what I was thinking. Okay, I figured out, obviously, these are the three things that bring me the most happiness. So I should spend time doing those. But if I spend time doing those, the stuff that I don't like, there's important things in there as well. Do you know what I mean? I don't like getting the groceries. We need food. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes
where does it end?
Yeah.
I keep thinking. So if you implement it once,
yeah, exactly.
You'll find the nature of human beings is that there will then again be 20% of that 20% that you enjoy doing more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But
I don't know where it ends.
I think he said there's no end to it in the book. He said you just keep on refining it until the business is really great, or you have no revenue because it keeps on going to a smaller 20%.
Yeah, but it's more. I think one of the big benefits of it all is we'll give you more time.
Yeah, exactly. So he has actually for good uses of time, he has some rules around that. One, so they have to answer two questions when he's thinking about something about how to spend his time. One is it conventional? Is that a conventional way of spending time? So if you're, at work like everybody else in a big office or in a home office now, but when you were in a big office and everyone, takes 2 breaks a day, is that a good way to spend your time, to go to the coffee machine then? Do you know what I mean? Or you can use that for bigger stuff as well. Does it multiply my effectiveness? Think about that one. Right? I thought about this myself when I was, because I'm a partner manager, I've only got a certain amount of hours a day. And sometimes, because I like the control of things, I'll do stuff that other people should be doing just to get it done. I say, don't worry about that. I'll take care of it. Right? But that does not multiply my effectiveness. My effectiveness would be multiplied by spending time talking to people about why they should be thinking this is important as well. And then I won't have to do those tasks again because someone else will take over. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the most obvious situation where that happens is in a startup, when it's just you, maybe one other person or 2 other people, and you're doing such menial tasks, but they have to be done. And it's just like, is this really the best use of my time? And the answer is always no. But the good thing is you can outsource all that stuff, but they don't, but you should really find it, because there is people that will do that for you. And then you can focus on the most important things for a startup, which are more customers, more sales.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's something to think about. And kind of leading on to that, he's got some rules here that I might read out. And I just want to read these out so you can see if you think that they're good, if they're not good, kind of challenge them. And basically, he says these are the top 10 low value uses of time. So he's saying these are the stuff that you shouldn't be doing. Okay, things that other people want you to do. That's a broad stroke, isn't it?
An example of that could be, there's so many examples, but like emails. If somebody emails me, it's very hard to do. And what I do in recruitment, it's very hard not to keep an eye on your emails. You have to, like, it's a time thing. But that would be like getting people want you to reply to them. But he'd probably say, no, check your email in the morning, maybe once during the day, and then once at night, or not at night, before you finish up. I don't know. It's a bit of a broad statement. Yeah, but I know you know what he means, though.
I know what he means, and I think that it's if someone else told you to do it, then it's something that you would or wouldn't have done otherwise. So it's use of time. Things that have always been done this way. So I've got a good example of this. I worked at an investment bank, and every morning I had to update the stock database. That was my thing, right? So I go over to the Bloomberg machine. For those of you who've not worked in finance, Bloomberg is a is where the information comes in about stocks, investments, all that type of stuff.
Never understood how it needs its own separate machine, but anyway.
It's something to do with the data feed. So it's up to the millisecond data feed coming in. So yeah, it's the information that they're paying for. That's why Michael Bloomberg is so rich. Anyway, I'd go over and I had a list of stocks or private equity investments that I have to go search for, get all the information, update the database, all that type of stuff. And I did this for a year before I realized that I Googled, spreadsheet Bloomberg connection, and I built a macro in Excel that sucked the information in, and then I didn't have to do anything in the morning ever again. I didn't tell anybody. But you know what I mean? I was like, I fixed that completely. But
yeah,
I was worried they were going to ask me to do something else in the morning, so I didn't tell them.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
I don't know what I did. But
a lot of people's jobs, or a lot of proportion of people's jobs could be automated, and that scares people, and they don't want to.
Okay, so number 3 is things you're usually not good at. I love this one.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it. Doubling down on what you're good at. I think you can only really implement that when you're probably at least in your 20s, like when you've actually figured out, because the stuff that I'm good at now that I wasn't in my teenage years, like,
but imagine a manager or something says something, Luke, can you take care of that? And then they're like, I'm not good at that. I don't want to, like, that's not something that I'm good at. I should spend my time doing something else. Like, that's a real, it's a hard thing to say. Or it's a hard thing to say to yourself.
It's tough as an employee, because, if it's part of your job description, you kind of have to do it, and you'd have to really put a case across as to why you shouldn't do it and why, but if you're running your own business, it's a lot more easier to implement. Like with the podcast. What do we say at the start? We'll do what we're good at, and we've done that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I like I like doing the editing and all that type of stuff. You do the social media. Imagine how bad the social media stuff would be if I was doing that.
and the editing wouldn't get done if I was to do, I wouldn't have time to do it all as well. Like,
yeah, and I've enjoyed learning about it. Like,
Yeah.
So things that you don't enjoy doing. That's a kind of a funny one as well. Some of these ones are almost like cheeky. I don't enjoy doing this. It's not a good use of my time.
That's very It's like a childish thing to say, isn't it? Like,
okay. I'm going to challenge you to apply that though. What do you do that you don't enjoy doing?
Are we talking in business or in life?
We're in the kind of the lifestyle element of this.
That I don't enjoy doing.
I'll give you an example. Some people might try to save money by doing their own taxes.
Yeah.
You don't enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
Not a good use of your time.
Cleaning the house, like.
Yeah.
But like, as two people who are at home a lot, like, it's very hard to get someone else in to clean the house. But then again, like, it does take up a lot of your time cleaning up.
Merchants say as well, if there's a migrant worker that I can help out along the way, so be it. That's
the reason that is a job. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
So think about that one.
That would be, I've often thought that, like, is this a good use of my time? And I think about it with, like, getting people in to paint the house and stuff like that, or outside. I can do that. Of course I could do that. But it's actually, if I do a painting, it'll actually pay for that, 2 times over or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So you have to think, is it most efficient?
Well, your painting will pay for the painting outside.
Yeah, it's a different type of painting. Yeah.
Kind of meta. I like it. Here's what that's really interesting. I won't go through all these, but like, here's one that's really interesting to me as well. It says things that few. This one's like another one of the cheeky ones. So these are things that are waste of time, not a good use of your time. Doing things few other people are interested in.
What would be an example of that?
So like if you're in work and you're doing something that, it's part of your job, but no one's going to be really watching what that is.
Yeah.
Focus on stuff where people are interested in. So for me, a good example of that would be, I'm in a sales, I'm in the sales org. The revenue is what people really care about. Work on that. I could work on, right now, I'm doing marketing and stuff like that. No one's going to say, Luke, how's that marketing going? No one cares. None of my superiors care about that. How much revenue is it making? That's all that matters. So don't spend a second on anything else. any type of like service tickets. Don't send it set. No one cares about that. But why are you doing it then? So these are the type of things that, I'm talking to me there, not you.
No, but I know there is jobs, that where half of what you do is revenue generating and then the other half is admin. But at the end of the day, people's opinion of the outcome of those is heavily skewed towards the revenue side.
Yeah.
So if you're bringing in zero revenue and you're the best admin person on the team, as much as they're thankful about the admin, like, you're gone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Then I'm going to skip a few. There's ones here that are really interesting as well. Things where your collaborators are unreliable or low quality. Don't do those things. I've got a few. I'm not going to go too deep in there, but some of the fucking, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an obvious one.
I've got some good examples here, but it's going out live. I'll take that off air, but it's a few times in my career. Okay, let's talk about it. I love talking about my jobs in Canada because it feels like they're so far away. Even though one of the Canadian guys I worked with is now going to work in HubSpot. He's moving to Dublin. Anyway, so I would say collaborators are low quality or unreliable. Have you ever worked on a project with people who weren't putting in the same amount that you were putting in or was necessary?
Yeah, I think everyone can relate to that. Yeah.
But if they're completely unreliable or low quality, the outcome's going to be poor anyway. So don't waste time there to say, I'm not going to be involved in this.
It's the same with clients, don't only focus, but like the 20% of your clients should be the one that you're putting the most focus on. Same with your collaborators, the projects. You're wasting your time.
100%.
It's just not an effective use of time, man.
So to be an effective use of our time during this podcast, we've got two more lists that I want to go through, but you're going to have to pick one. All right. So I'll give you the titles and then we'll see which one is best.
Okay.
Got to move on here. I mean, we're almost at 40 minutes here on the first book. Okay.
Sit tight, people.
Yeah, sit tight here. So, okay. So we can either read, kind of go through the top 10 highest value uses of time, or we can say, what does all this mean for the ambitious?
Yeah, let's go for the last one, the ambitious one.
Let's take ambitious. Okay, cool. Ambitious, rather. All right. So here's just some rules. Like after doing all of these 80-20 analyses over his kind of lifetime in strategy consulting, and just to give some context as well, he started a company called LEK Consultancy, which was really, really successful. I think he sold his part out of that after 6 years, and then went on to make hundreds of millions other places. I actually applied for LEK after college. Didn't get past the phone interview, so thanks, Richard Koch, for that. Okay, it's probably for the best. I think I had to move to London. Anyway, okay, so these are the what does this all mean for the ambitious? Okay, so let's put some hustle behind this. All right, so these are the rules that he thinks that you should follow. Specialize in a small niche and develop a core skill. Okay, so for you've got kind of a couple of core skills. Obviously the painting, the art is one thing, but what would you say would be your core skills in your business? Are you a relationships guy? Is that where you should be spending your money or spending your time? Are you the high level guy? What do you think, just from a personal reflection point?
If I'm to look at what I do, I'd split it into probably 4 different areas: art, then recruitment, which let's call that sales or business. Finance is what I trained in. That's more just being literate in that. I wouldn't say it's an area. Technically, it's finance recruitment. And then thirdly, it would be like just kind of online sales and e-commerce and that kind of thing. So, but they all kind of intersect with each other. Creativity is probably building brand. I'm pretty good at building brands and creativity. Yeah, if I think about it, it's all. And then relationship building is important as well. I am a people person. I like speaking to people.
Mark, so, it's from the outside, I think it's creativity.
Yeah, it probably is.
That's where everything comes from. A lot of people don't have that at all.
But I probably don't spend as much time in the creativity side as I should, because it's very hard to directly monetize creativity.
It is, but you're getting there as well with all of the bits of the stuff that you're doing. right? So that was it. So if you're talking to your kids, this is kind of good advice for these guys. So develop a core skill, choose a niche that you enjoy and where you can excel, and have a chance to stand out as a acknowledged leader. I think that's a good one as well. So
People are so reluctant to go into a niche, aren't they? But anybody who's done really well out of anything has probably gone into a niche that they're passionate about. Very hard. That you shouldn't just pick a niche. You shouldn't just, roll the dice and land on, the cricket niche or something, and then go into the cricket stuff and you know nothing about it.
Exactly. And there's another quote that I wrote down here from this book as well. It says, "To be a winner, you must pick the right competition. Be selective of the races that you enter." All right. And then he talks about how all of the times that people fail, the 80% of the time it's because it was a race that other people put you in. So you're put in school. You're put, maybe your parents wanted you to be a football star, so they put you in. Sorry, you didn't choose that race. Do you know what I mean? So being
personally, in when I went into to train as an accountant, I felt I wasn't the best, like, out of everybody there. I'd probably been mid-table accountant type of thing, and I just thought I got to do something about this, because the amount of study that I could possibly have to do to get to the level that some people are at, it's just not worth it. So I hopped out of that race.
So realize knowledge is power. So it's something that, like, I would say, if I was giving advice to somebody, I'd say niche down in cloud computing. Figure out all of the high levels things you need to know to be able to sell that, and then that's your niche. Your knowledge of that area is going to be something that you'll be able to sell. Identify your market and the core customers and serve them best. This is
easily said than done.
Okay. Learn from the best is another one. So figure out who in the niche is the go-to. I think it's easier than people think, and it's something that I've learned from this podcast. People are open to doing lots of different things. You just reach out to people who'll sit down with you for more than an hour and chat about, like, we get to pick their brain. Really, the podcast has been mind opening for me on that point.
People are generally passionate about what they do, are quite open to actually talking about it. As you'd imagine, the stumbling or the hurdle to get to those people to have that conversation. I mean, we've sorted that with a podcast, but usually, like, if you just approach somebody and prove in a message that you're not mental, you're not absolutely crazy, usually they will. But there is that risk that somebody could be crazy and they don't want to reply to them. So if you can have some sort of, whether it's if you know somebody that knows someone that you're trying to get to, or you have an online profile that people can double check and click in, that's usually what people do. Okay, this person is normal. Usually you can have these conversations and find out what it is and skip the queue and copy what they're doing. And there's no such thing as an original idea, I don't think.
Skip the queue. It's going to be when I get around to writing a book, skipping the queue is going to be the title, I think. There's 3 here that I'm just going to bang out really quickly that I think are some of the most important advice that anyone could have. 1, become self-employed early in your career and employ as many net value creators as possible. Right?
Yeah.
That's like, if you sat down and figured out a business, forget about what industry, forget about everything.
Yeah.
Like, how can I just build a system where I can hire as many net producers as possible? I'll give you an example. There's a guy, if you're on YouTube and you're typing entrepreneurship or whatever, his name is Patrick Bet-David, right? He's a guy, it's called Valuetainment on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
The first time it's hard to take the first time you watch a video because he seems like a gobshite. I don't know what it is. Like, he seems real silly and stuff like that. Then you realize he has 17,000 staff in his company.
Does he?
Insurance. Yeah. He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, he's so legit, right? But the way he goes on, it seems a bit fake. Do you know what I mean? But what he's done is what I'm talking about here, where he said, okay, in America, everyone buys insurance. I'm going to set up a system where ambitious people can sell as much insurance as they want, and I just pay them a commission. Right? So he goes city by city, opening offices, hiring salespeople. They work mostly on commission over there. He sets up all of the relationships with all of the insurance companies. So that's where he spends all his time, on those relationships. and then he basically just sets that up for ambitious people, and then hires the most people who can add value to it. But people don't set up businesses like that. We don't say, okay, how many? Well, I'll set up the infrastructure, and then I'll just get people who I know I can make money off, or not I can, but they can.
That's probably the most simplistic way of doing it. Is one of those kind of sales kind of businesses, where there's not a lot in between. It's literally product and salespeople, and
Exactly.
if the salesperson isn't making a net profit, well then you don't keep them.
Exactly. It's something to think about as well when we're talking about coming up with business ideas. And we'll kick on to the STAR principle now, because we could talk all day about that book. So if anyone is interested and are interested in a book that will really challenge them to think about their life, not just from business, but from a whole happiness point of view, maybe think about that. And if anyone has ever said to you, this isn't a good use of my time, and you got angry about that, because it sounds like it's a prick saying that. They're actually just kind of they're thinking probably more clearly than other people. Okay, cool. So Mark, let's move right along. My second.
What are we going to rate that? Are we going to rate them out of 10?
Yeah, let's rate it out of 10. I give that the 80-20 principle. I give that a solid 9. Actually.
Yeah, I'd agree. Solid 9, and it'll have a last 100%, 80% maybe. Will have a lasting effect on your thinking.
Yeah, especially like we haven't even started to implement this. This is it's a work in progress for sure with that type of stuff. Okay, cool. So the second book that we covered here, and one that I think is just an amazing read as well, is The STAR Principle. So The STAR Principle, it's called The STAR Principle and How It Can Make You Rich, which is always a good. I think someone else put that in. Sometimes I think that some of these books, I don't see Koch making a title on that. I'd say his was The STAR Principle, and then the editor threw that on to sell some books. But if anybody out there is looking for a quick read that's going to be really impactful, I mean, you could read it, like I said, in 3 or 4 hours. You can blow through it. But it's a different way of thinking about businesses. It's based on the Boston Consulting Group's matrix of stars, question marks, cash cows, and dogs. So that's how they categorize different businesses. So when you do when you study strategic management in college, you'll go through a lot of stuff that was created in the kind of management consulting revolution in the late 70s and 80s. Boston Consulting Group were one of the main kind of one of the big three in that era, and they came out with a lot of good stuff like this. But what Richard Koch is saying, and I know we've had Michael Houghton on from the Irish Fire podcast, which was great as well. Really enjoyed that one. I'm taking steps after talking to him.
Yeah.
He was talking about investing in a diversified account over long term and to get average returns. Koch talks about in the book how he only invests in star businesses that would be, completely outside of what normal investing thinking would predict, or what would say it to be. So to be a star business, the business has to be the leader in its niche. So the number one is in its niche, and it also has to be in a fast growing niche of more than 10% managed in measured in sales revenue. So basically what he's saying is, if you just invest in these, so there's two elements of the book. One is the investing. So where should you put your money if you're starting your own business? These are the things that you should actually think about. And the second part is how to, if you're not an entrepreneur, how can you also benefit from this? If you're not an investor, how can you get yourself kind of on the roller coaster early?
Like joining a startup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he talks about this, and he talks about the quadrant a lot, and how most of 1 in 20 businesses are star businesses. That's what he says. So it's a very low hit rate. So they're harder to find than you would expect. And he said that this is the case even for startups. So when people are investing, and you're looking at these startups that are getting a lot of investment, tens of millions in venture capital or whatever. If you look under the bonnet, a lot of these guys are still question marks. And even I was thinking about this. I was reflecting on maybe HubSpot, where I'm working. I think that it's probably a question mark business. And if we look at the quadrant, we talk about stars, which are leaders in high growth markets, followers who are in high growth markets, but they're not number one, cash cows, which are leaders in low growth markets like Coca-Cola or something like that, where they'll make a lot of money, but it's not growing like crazy. And then dogs, which are followers in low growth markets. What do you think a dog market is, Mark? What do you think? What would you say?
I would say that's most businesses probably, isn't it? Just kind of unsure of what next year is going to bring. They're never going to be the market leader. It's all about getting market share. He's obsessed with the market share because if you don't get that, and you can, probably the best way to get that is just merging with other companies, like Paddy Power and Betfair and or Flutter, whatever they're called now. But I would say most companies that people know of or that know people that own would be probably dogs. Like when he mentions cash cows, that sounds all right to me. Do you know what I mean? And I think it would be, most people would be happy, but he's talking about with the star thing, it's about thinking big. Like these are going to make you 100 million as opposed to a cash cow giving you, 500 grand cash a year, which would be super. But that, I suppose that's another kind of analysis on how do you actually get a cash cow. But he's probably saying have both. Like it's good to have a cash cow which will support your investments, which will be in the star businesses. The question marks could be really good, or they could be gone tomorrow.
Those question marks as well. Like they're followers in a growth market, so the likelihood of those guys overtaking, it's a lot harder, right? So the whole book is based on how to make your life easy. You're going to be working anyway a lot of the time. So you might as well be working in these type of areas. And
if you're a question mark, if the company is a question mark, unless there's a real possibility that it's a star, he recommends get out, cash out. Yeah, so which is harsh. Like it's just
imagine it. But these are things that I know we're a couple of young bucks still, but it's stuff that I wish they were teaching in school, where you go back to like a 12-year-old and be like, you should just start working for a star businesses. Anything else is waste your fucking time. Like,
it's almost too risky not to,
Yeah, exactly. It's almost, that's what I was thinking about after talking to Michael Houghton as well. I was always reluctant to buy a stock and stuff like that because it's risky. But the guy, was it Jim Rohn? What he always says, if you think investing is expensive, wait till you get the bill for not investing.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting take on things, and I think that if you took that when you were leaving college or something, if you just took this tiny book and implemented that, you'd be doing really well. Like
every CEO of a tech company thinks they're a star, though. Like, well, probably literally, and thinks the business is a star. So it's actually removing the emotion and just going on the strategy that's laid out. And that's why he sounds so confident when he's talking about it. Like, it's like, it is hard, but just read this, and then follow the guide.
It's a step-by-step guide to
and have $1 million. And he's like, oh, I only put $1 million in that company. That's where your cash cow comes in. Maybe the first book should have been how to create a cash cow.
Maybe. But one of the last things here in the rules for the ambitious from the 80-20 rule is actually exploit capital leverage.
Yeah.
So how do you, and then that's actually, there's something I'll get to now that it kind of goes on from what you're saying there. So he says, okay, so let's say that you're going to invest in only these star businesses, and you'll go find those. That's fine. You've got your investments. That's where you're going to put your money, because you're going to get unreasonable returns. So it's not going to be 4% like the normal stock market. It's going to be 50%, whatever. He gives you the path if you want to create stars, a really in-depth look at all of the different business ideas that you can generate from different concepts. So which is almost never happens in these books as well. That's something that's kind of like a departure from these type of self-help books. It's like you said, it's like, just do this, figure out, a niche that's growing. If you can do something similar, but in a more luxurious way, that's your niche. If it's growing more than 10%, there's your star. Next.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I'd say being around him, like working for him, would be really difficult because it'd be like he'd expect a lot. You know? Okay, cool. So, so the most important. So yeah, so that's the first one. So it talks about how to, start find a star, start it, all that type of stuff. But then it starts to talk about people who aren't that way inclined, which is most people don't want to just risk it all on a potential star. So he actually shows that you should kind of how to figure out which businesses are going to be stars or have that potential, and then also how to work for those companies, get involved in those companies, and also what to do when you're in there. It's an amazing book. It really goes through the steps. So he talks about that you should, once you've identified a star, you shouldn't wait until they've got a job opening. You need to contact them and tell them what you can do for them. That's that, because by the time they realize that they need someone like you, there's going to be 100 people knocking on the door trying to get in here. So before they realize this, so I'll give you an example. Say if I've built a reseller business for HubSpot from scratch. Absolutely, there was none before this, and now there is a whole department there. Say if there was a marketing automation business that was a startup, that was like a brand. They had some sort of niche that I don't even know about yet, Joe. But I saw it fit into these two categories of a star business, or these two determinants of a star business. If I went to them and said to them, listen, you're going to be a star business, I think. Let me come in and build a reseller network all over Europe for you. They're going to be like, yeah, sure. Why not? Do you know what I mean? I think that's something that when we're young people looking for a job, maybe young people's the wrong one because they don't have the skills yet, but mid-career people, what do? They go to monster.a, they go to companies that they want to work for. Oh, they're not hiring anyone like me. How do you know? Joe?
Yeah. Maybe they want to be a passenger on the boat as opposed to driving it.
Yeah. Imagine if somebody so right now you may not be hiring anybody. What if someone contacted you and said, hey Mark, I've got all of these great contacts for finance jobs in Birmingham. I'm from Birmingham, but I have to live in Dublin. Do you mind if I go under your umbrella and bring in these clients? And you're gonna, of course, but you're not going to put an ad on your website saying recruiter from Birmingham needed. You don't know you need it. You know what I mean? So this is, I think, just that kind of concept that Koch brings up makes you really think about things. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
That's a really good one. Yeah.
So let's keep that in mind as well. And he says he talks about what to do once you're in. So you've done that. You've reached out to them. You've got the job. You're doing that now. You need to push the star to think internationally. Try to grow it as much as you can from the internal side of things. And this is another Kochism. He said, if the people who started the business don't get it, try to buy them out. He's a baller. Like that's a killer move. So basically, yeah, if they don't get it, if they won't raise their ambition, he says to make an offer for the firm, figure out how to get the finance later. I think it's it's pretty big thinking here,
Yeah.
So they were the main points. I mean, is there anything that stood out to you from the STAR principle other than what we went through there?
I was interested at all the different examples. I don't know why I automatically think of technology when you think of star firms, because you think of Facebook, Google, all that kind of thing. But like there was a restaurant business. What was it? It was like was it Belgian, like a Belgian food that Belco, was it?
I remember that one directly, but
I think that was a business he invested in, Belco. It was like based on an old monastery, the vibe.
Oh yeah, exactly. So the whole decor was from a monastery thing, and that they were the market leader in monastery dining.
Yeah.
And it was growing more than 10%. So that's a star business. So like I've got how to find your star, put a sign up. Yeah, I can't see it here. I thought I had an opening for that one. Okay, cool. But I know what you mean. We always think about the like technology for that, and that's a good example of where to apply that. But if we also think about how like 10% growth per year is really a low bar, I think. Like with technology, usually we're thinking about ideas that will grow whatever 70%. Like HubSpot's still growing 70% year over year. Do you know what I mean? And that's like that would be, hyper growth. So surely if basically a star business in that case is, let's think of the market on a Sunday in Dunleary. The niche might be the guy who does the Italian sausages there.
Yeah.
He's the only one doing sausages there, right? That's the niche. He's the market leader in Italian sausages in Dunleary.
Yeah.
If his revenue is growing 10% year over year, say even if he's just upping his prices 10% year over year, he can get growth that way. Technically, that's a star business. Something that he should be happy with investing in, trying to expand. Do you look right? So that's a micro example, but I think that this can be applied to a lot of things. I think a lot of companies, like I said, fall into that follower stage. You guys with the financial recruitment, that's the niche. Are you guys in the cash cow end of things? Are you the followers? Being a star in recruitment, I think, would be really difficult unless you were doing something ultra niche down. So
like it has to be a fast growing niche. That's an important thing. It's very hard to find that. Like a fast growing niche. Filofax was one that he had, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And that was growing great. And then all of a sudden people just start taking notes on their mobiles.
Yeah. And he actually talks about that in the book as well, about fading stars.
Yeah.
But like the good news is that when something fades is a million other opportunities.
Yeah.
Do that. So really interesting book. What would you give that out of 10, Mark? What are you thinking?
What would I give that out of 10? I would say I liked it. And it was a lot of practical examples and practical things you can actually follow up on as well. It will stay in my mind when it comes to business and decisions I make. I give it 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. Okay, so a little bit less. Do you know what? For time investment versus output, I would give that a 10 out of 10.
Okay.
That's on my must read list. That's something that we need to know if you're growing up. Like my little boy is going to understand the star principle, and I'm going to confront him if he's ever doing something if he's not working for a star, if he's not creating a star business, he's not getting the best out of his time. Joe? Yeah. I think
one thing.
9.8. Okay.
So just one thing was like all well and good, and not talking about the joining a star business as an employee, but like you really need capital to make a star business work.
Okay.
Your own capital. So it's I want to read the book as how do you build the cash cow to generate the money you're going to invest. I know there's different ways of investing and you can borrow and stuff like that, but
yeah, I tell you what, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I think capital is the least important
for a star.
To get a star, if you take some of the steps of creating the star business in the book, I think you can bring that to people, show them, and get the money that you need. I'll give you an example. Connor, who we had on the podcast, Mad Egg.
Yeah, Connor Sheridan.
Yeah, Connor Sheridan. His idea for Squeeze could be a star business. It's a niche product. You can have unlimited growth. He got into the NDRC. He'll get whatever finance he needs to get that off the ground. I think financing is like the least of your worries. I know it seems like it's the biggest one. But there is unlimited money, and they keep on making it. They keep on printing it. Joe. So it's if that's the only thing. I don't think that there's I don't think there's a lot of any businesses that really are the leaders in a niche that's growing more than 10% that won't get funding.
But you don't just get funding. You don't just get handed 500 grand. You're going to have to put up a certain amount of that. People forget that. Like nobody invests in you without you putting skin in the game yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So
Mm.
like in that case, you can take the steps that he puts out in the book to go work for one of these other ones, and then you'll have the shares that you need to cash in and start a new one.
Yeah.
Do you know? But it is, I know what you mean. There's a book to be written still. And I think that, we're talking about the kind of financial independence, retire early thing where every month you take a certain percentage of your income and you invest it in the stock market over the long term, hold for the long term, so you can be financially free. I'd like to say there's probably a book to be written about how to just generate cash to actually start investing in that isn't to do with hour per hour work. I know what you're thinking. It was called the 4-hour work week, but there's a more practical book where it's like, okay, I want to invest €100 a day. Here's 50 ideas about how to make €100 a day extra.
There's a lot of books out there on what to how to invest, how to build star companies, all that kind of stuff. But there's usually a small paragraph on actually, and obviously in order to do this, you have to have your own fund built up to put into it.
Yeah.
It's very, very small. And it annoys me sometimes when it's such a small caveat. Obviously you're going to need 50 grand. Not everybody has 50 grand to put in. Or one, you might have it, but Jesus Christ, you're not gonna risk it. 50 grand to risk putting into a new venture or multiple new ventures.
Yeah. It's the catch-22, and I still think that you're like, okay, it's going to take 50 grand to do, then you can't afford to do it if you can't afford to lose it. So you're going to have to go get your Italian sausage out. You got to start somewhere.
Excuse me?
No, from my example.
All right.
So I know what you mean. Let's write that book. How to generate cash, because cash cow.
Maybe Richard can write it. You can call it Koch-22.
Yeah, Koch. Automatic Koch. So
generating Koch. Anyway, go on.
Koch. So the most important kind of takeaway from that is that, okay, whether you've got 50K on the hip to invest in your own star business, this is the ones that you should be spending your time. I think time management is kind of his big thing. Where do you spend your time? Where are you going to get the most return?
Definitely the younger, the vibe I'm getting from a lot of these books is the younger you start doing this, the better. I don't know, that's no use to somebody who's older, because you can start at any age, but definitely your time is on your side when you're 20.
100%.
But no, go off traveling when you're 20. Take it easy. That's what people say to you. You've loads of time. You come back and you're 26, and people are saying, well, here, give me $2,000 a month for rent, or else, and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. It's the early start thing is a weird one. I've talked to my wife a couple of times about whether or not our kids should go to college.
Especially, you're talking to a teacher, so I'm imagining she'll say they should.
Yeah, 100%. And I think they probably should, just for the rag week and stuff. I think that's fun, and you should do it if it makes you happy. But like, even now, like, it's all online. They're not getting any of that. They're basically they have to do this weird kind of like it's like you have this task master who says, give me X amount of words, and you cough up words on a page with like little, and everyone has to be Harvard referenced and stuff. It's boring. It's a waste of time, isn't it?
Well, it's definitely not. Like, it was obviously, things were moving online and education was changing, and people's attitude towards college was definitely changing every day. But now that they can't physically be there, well, then why not do a different online course? You know what I mean?
What if
the colleges are really going to have to sell themselves if they can't have the advantage of actually having people on campus?
What if I told you in a year we could do some of this stuff when it comes to like the cautious rules of success, or for the ambitious, to get a core skill, make sure you can be the leader in that and stuff. Like, there's areas of technology that are expanding far more than 10% a year, far more, in the thousands of percent a year. Do you like it away from a revenue point of view? In 2 or 3 months, you could get a core skill of how to work in one of those technologies, 2 or 3 months, I'd say, where you're better than 99% of the world in that area. Like it would be, I'd say you'd probably have to buy tutorials online, buy people's time who's already doing that.
It's basically 80-20 in your education.
Yeah, and then you say, when I come out, I can do all these things. Here's a book of work that I've done for other companies, kind of on spec even. My point is, education. It's not that I don't agree with education. I just think you can just niche down into until you're the guy at X. And online, you should, like, what does Arnold Schwarzenegger say? Work like hell and advertise.
Yeah.
Everyone forgets the second part.
Yeah, I think education is it's too broad. It's not niche enough, and that's, like, I don't mind secondary school. You have to learn every subject, but when you're in college, a lot of courses are way too broad. That kind of do your 3 years and then specialize in a master's. Why not do your master's in 2 years and just skip the degree? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a weird one. But the good news is that if everybody else is fixed on that, we've got the advantage, because we know that that's not the case for our children, to say, this is something that you should look at. Here's €1,000 to invest. Pick a star business there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And we'll open an account and we'll put that on and see how it goes. And then I'll invest in cash cows and stuff like that, and see who comes better at the end of the year. That's a real lesson.
Yeah.
Do you know, you could do that. Okay, cool. Okay, so we got two books left. I know we're at an hour and 10 minutes here, Mark. So I'm going to blow through this one real quick. This is Super Connect. Super Connect is by Richard Koch and Greg Lockwood. This is about the 3 different types of networks that people have. One, strong links or strong kind of bonds, family, people you grew up with, all that type of stuff. Obviously, these are the most important in people's lives, but the ones that we have probably the least control over, right? And this can be a good thing if you went to the right school, if your family were in the right golf club, etc. Those guys will look after each other in the business world. Especially if it's professional services, they seem to prefer to work with people they know. Because
it's funny, I was just down at Layla had training. It was down in Blackrock, where Blackrock Rugby Club play.
Yeah,
in Stradbroke. I think that's And I looked at the advertisements all around the pitch.
Yep.
And it was all accountancy firms, corporate finance firms, big businesses, and it was just interesting that it was such a small little club, really, in the scheme of things, but all the sponsors that it had obviously correlate to where all these people from BlackRock are going to after they graduate.
Exactly. And because a lot of the times it's not a big differentiation between professional services. It's a who you know game. So say if you're a solicitor, maybe solicitor, that can be more of a nuance, but say if you're an accounting firm, like, I can pay somebody to do the accounts and somebody else do the accounts, and will they not be the exact same because it's regulated? What's the difference?
Yeah.
I mean, the outcome is different for most people. I know service and all that type of stuff, but like what you're buying from them, there's a lot of substitutes. So somebody that I would prefer, or someone that I grew up with, obviously I'm going to give them the business rather than somebody who has the best Google AdWords. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm outside of that network, then fine, I'll find somebody online. And there's lots of people like that, but the best networks are the strongest networks are the ones that you don't really control. So that's one area. The second one is weak links that they talk about in the book. So weak links are those ones those people that you kind of know, that you would have the ability to reach out to get information for, get connected by. A lot of the time, the weak links are ones that we develop that lead to success later on, but we don't even realize either at the time they weren't on purpose, or we don't realize at the end how that worked. I'll give you a good example. When I was reading this, something really came to me. So I've been working in HubSpot for 3.5 years. Well, a little bit over that. Had a great time there. It gave me the ability to buy a nice house, all that type of stuff. Really, really successful there, right? One of my wife's best friend's husband, we met him in Vietnam in a beach town, and he told me about HubSpot. That was a weak link at the time, and that has had a huge impact on my life.
Mm-hmm.
So the book basically says that a lot of the weak links that we build, we don't really think about how important they're going to be. So it basically says you should make sure to put effort into weak links as well. So meet as much people as you can. But that's kind of advice that everyone says. But how do you take action on that? For me, since I started to read this book, even in work, I'm starting to book time with people that I don't know in work to see how we can collaborate on things. I'm trying to talk to as many people I don't know as possible. Do you know that kind of way? I think that's a good way to start, because then we never know when that's going to come back into your help you in the future, or maybe you'll help them. It talks also about super connectors. So super connectors are those people, and it talks about they can't really. It's difficult one to kind of become better at, but super connectors are the people who put people in touch with people. And we all know those people in our lives, and they become very powerful because everyone owes them a favor. Everyone owes them, business or whatever. So
that is a job for some people. They connect people. An introducer.
Exactly. But I'm thinking of one person in particular who you can't get on the dart with him, because every single person knows him, and everyone that bumps into him, he has somebody that he's going to reach out and connect them with. So you walk down the road with them, they'll bump into somebody and they'll say, "Oh, how's it going? How's that project? Oh yeah, I must get you on to X so and so. He'll help you with that." That person, like, it's a difficult thing to become, because it's kind of like a personality trait. But it
takes time, I would imagine. As you get older, more people.
Better reputation.
It's a good habit to do. I always think I try to do that a lot, is actually connect people, and I'm actually getting no benefit out of it. But I know it's just it's kind of a karma thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what the book's kind of saying as well, because you've strengthened those ties as well, right?
Yeah.
That's why if anybody ever asked me for a recommendation into HubSpot, I always do that, and I always try to really help them, because if you help somebody get a job, that's a big impact on someone's life.
Yeah, I do it for a living.
Yeah, you do it for a living. So, this is an ad for Darwin Hawken. Okay, so basically the last type of network is hubs, which is kind of like your kind of web of network that you're in if you're in college, if you're in jobs and stuff like that. It talks about if you're in a negative hub, take steps to get out of that.
What would be a negative hub?
Say if you're working for a large financial institution in Ireland, and everyone is negative around you, but you don't know anybody outside that sphere on a day-to-day basis. So take steps to get out of that, get into a more positive hub of networking. And basically, that's the end of the book. So guys, skip 350 pages or whatever. I would say out of 10, I'm giving that a 5.
Okay.
That's harsh, is it? What do you think?
I don't know. Well, it's what you get from it,
Just network more. Okay. Next.
Maybe you knew a lot already to do it, and you didn't get as much value because you just had a lot of information.
Yeah.
Already.
Absolutely. Okay. So last book on the list of Koch-tober 2020. Mark's got it there. It's the one where unreasonable success and how to achieve it. There's the one that's out now. It came out a couple of months ago. At first, when I started reading it, Mark, I don't generally love books where they lean a lot on detailed examples that go on for pages and pages, right? And I think that at the beginning, that kind of put me off a little bit when he was introducing the 12 protagonists in this book. People like Margaret Thatcher, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, was it? John of Tarsus or whatever? What was it?
Paul of Tarsus.
Yeah, St. Paul.
What did he do? He spread Christianity to the Romans, essentially.
Yeah, essentially.
No, some of them. I'll list out some of the people that are involved, that are in the book. So Winston Churchill, Leonardo da Vinci, Walt Disney, Bob Dylan, Einstein, Viktor Frankl, J.K. Rowling, as you said, Steve Jobs, Lenin, Madonna, Mandela, Margaret Thatcher. There's a few.
There's a few. So basically, in the book, he links a group of aspects of people's success, or how they're achieving these successes, to all of those people. So I believe he says like all of those people go through all of these different phases. What are the phases that are?
Yeah. So they are to achieve, and now this is not just to achieve success, it's unreasonable success. So it's obviously a huge difference.
Yeah.
Self-belief, Olympian expectations.
Okay, well, I've made a note of that anyway. So, okay, guys, that was a bit of a technical difficulty. We haven't had a tech problem since early 2020, so we've been doing well, but we're back now. Me and Mark were just having a chat about the final book on our list, which is the Unreasonable Success and how to achieve it. We were talking, we were just about to talk about Mark giving it the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Who's the book for? Would you recommend it to people? What's your take, Mark?
Yeah, I really liked the book. Really did. And I actually listened to a few podcasts where he was talking about it and promoting it. And I like the anecdotal way he does it, going through their life, each individual. He gives practical examples. I do think that all these people, probably 90% of the factors that they had it naturally. Most of them, I'd say they knew that certain ones would actually make a difference, so they tried to orchestrate that in their favor. But most of these people seem to have all these characteristics naturally. But it's like, how do you create or manufacture these to suit you when you're not naturally like that? Like if you look through them, self-belief. Koch is saying that you can. It's actually not too late to manufacture self-belief and create self-belief in an older person, but it does start in childhood. We all know that. Steve Jobs, he was adopted, and people say that he felt abandoned and always wanted control because of that, but he actually denied that. He said that he was told that he was chosen.
Wow.
His adoptive parents, sat him down slowly and carefully, told him, "We chose you out of all the other ones." So he felt special from day one.
Yeah.
Almost messianic at times.
Wow.
That was just him. And then he went to India to get enlightened and all, and he said he was enlightened. But so I do think as a parent, that's important to know. And we've talked about it before. I was told I could be anything. I could be a doctor. Never wanted to be a doctor, but that was the pinnacle.
Yeah.
That most people, in the 90s or whatever, thought, you could be as a doctor. So I've always held that with me. So self-belief, I'm not sure how you can create self-belief as a 30 something year old man. What do you think?
So it's kind of it's what I didn't like it, but this was not my least favorite of his books, but it wasn't one that I really liked. It's a little bit kind of Monday morning quarterback, a little bit.
Yeah.
For people who don't really follow that, the suggestion is like kind of like saying, okay, this is why they won, but you couldn't have said that beforehand. Do you know what I mean? Like, so if I sat down with Winston Churchill as a child and be like, ticking the box, this guy has self-belief. He's got, he's going to blaze his own trail. He wasn't trying to do that. That was kind of a natural thing. So one of the things that I think that is difficult about this, and it is difficult for me generally, and I think for a lot of people, is to think of life as a long-term project. All right. So in the book, he maps out, this is the map to unreasonable success. That map will take years to achieve, or to get to the pot of gold, or the treasure map, or the treasure of the map, right? And it's kind of the same thing as we were talking. I know we've talked about this a lot in the podcast because it made a big impact on me. The Michael Houghton podcast we did, where trying to think in 20-year time frames of, I know if I want to be financially independent when I'm 50, I have to do all of these bits and pieces now. But it's so hard to do something every month for a long-term play, long-term plays. And since, I'm going to be having a child soon, please God. And it's since that I've been getting way better at the thinking in the long term. Like, it's really opened me up where life goes on beyond tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? And I've never really thought long term with anything that I did. So when I look at that book that you're talking about there, compared to say the 80-20 principle that I can take action today on, if I do analysis and say, okay, this is what happened, this is what's happening with the business, right? But those types of books where it's a long term play, I get excited about it. Same with the fucking 4-hour work week that we were obsessed with. It's been on every holiday I've ever been on. That's a long term play. Like, it even says it in the book. It's like it's going to take at least 6 months to put this in action, to get a muse up and running. And I think back and I'm like, I've never tried that for 6 months. I've never. Do you know what I mean? Commitment for long term for a strategy is very difficult for me, and I think a lot of people. So those books are great to read. I think about Mandela, and I'm like, this is great. I love Mandela.
No, but he's analyzing he's starting at the end with them and going back and saying, why did they get to the unreasonable success? That success didn't actually necessarily come at the end of their careers. We just got to know them at the end, and study especially people from history. But you can the principles that were involved that helped make them who they were, you can act on them now. Self-belief, like the quicker you act on that, the better. Olympian expectations,
for sure.
You need that right now. Transforming experiences. That was a fluke for them, but he's saying you can actually orchestrate your transforming experience by seeking it.
I 100% agree with him there. There is a way of, you can manufacture a break in your life. If it's not going well, you need to do something different. Whether that is the Steve Jobs thing where he goes to India, takes acid, or whatever he did there. Or, I'm not saying that anyone should do that, but I'm saying, like, for me, it was going to South America for 4 months. I've never been the same. That it got me out of the hub that I was in, that he talks about in Super Connectors, all that type of stuff. But that was I've never been the same since I came back from that break. Do you know what I mean?
What does Matthew McConaughey call them?
Walkabouts.
Yeah.
That's another thing. I read his book, his audiobook. That is another podcast maybe, but it was good. But it was a lot of the same stuff that we talked about in our podcast, actually.
Okay. Do you reckon he heard it?
I think he might have based his book on our podcast. No, it is good though. If someone wants like an easy listen, he's a good storyteller. I'd say definitely download it if you want to download it for free. You can use our affiliate link in the thing below. Okay, but Mark, we got to wrap this up. So out of the 4 books, which one? How do you rank them?
I would say 80-20 first. Yeah. I would say close enough one between Unreasonable Success and Star Principle. I'd actually go with Unreasonable Success.
Wow, nice.
Yeah,
I'd be the opposite now. I think the Star one is it's more of my cup of tea. Do you know? I like almost like a workbook. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do think there's such valuable lessons to be found in historical figures who've gone on and done big things. Like a lot of people, even with looking at like CEOs or people who've done big things, they're a bit odd. Sometimes I think I'm too normal, and we've discussed this. Like you can actually feel like maybe if I was a bit more odd, I'd actually got that thing done, and I'd actually built that thing, whatever it was. Do you ever think that?
I often think, like, when I worked for a Canadian tech startup, the CEO was mad. There was, as my mom would say, there was a want there. But
and I'm not saying that you need to be a sociopath or psychopath or have those tendencies. It's more like
I'm just saying,
if you could just act on certain things like the way they did and weren't in fear of repercussions.
Yeah,
whatever it is.
I think the biggest takeaway there is, if you could act without fear, I just think the amount of things that you could get done, your life would be completely different. If you weren't afraid, say, if people are in work and they're not afraid to stand up for different things. So, like you said, your boss wants you to do something this way, and you just go, "I'm not doing it. That's a waste of time." Let's do it this way instead. Or let me do it this way. I'll show you that it's better.
Yeah.
No, everyone's afraid to do that. They just
Yeah.
head down. Oh, I just can't wait. It's Thursday. Fuck, Friday tomorrow. You know?
Yeah.
And on that
I think another thing, like with this book, it was like having extreme focus on one thing. I think, for a long period of time is important. You can't just, unless you're Donald Trump, just wing it all the way to the top.
man, talk about unreasonable success. I don't think there's any person in history that has been as successful versus the inputs or versus the. Then again, like we I know it's a controversial subject, but being the president of the United States by any measure is the most successful that you can be. Not by any measure, but a lot of people's measures.
If you actually look at these things, these principles involved, the lesson, like they're actually he actually takes a lot of them, distorting reality anyway, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. So this is the first time in a long time we've done a Whopper podcast here with Koch-tober. I enjoyed doing this. I kind of I thought I'd have more time in October to do this. So we got it all done. We kind of pushed it out a week or two extra. But I think we'll do something like this in October next year as well. I think it's worthwhile doing these types of things. If you guys are listening out there and you want to follow along, or if you had anything you wanted to tell us about those books that you've read, if you have any difference of opinions or anything, you can reach us at luke@shark.ie. We've got loads of guests lined up over the next few weeks up to Christmas, and then we'll hit our goal of doing 52 SharkPods, which we set out to do at the beginning of the year. Will we continue into 2021? You
Absolutely.
bet your ass we're going to be doing that. You're not getting rid of us that easy. Okay, guys, keep on moving forward. Keep swimming. Get after it. Don't mind these lockdowns and stuff like that. We'll figure it out. Pfizer have a vaccine ready for us. Pfizer CEO sold 60% of his shares that day, which for me is a tough one. But let's keep the hope alive. Mark, talk soon.
Thanks, Emil.